Welcome to Base Space, a crypto podcast. Base Space.
Welcome to the Base Space, Sammy. This is a crypto podcast hosted by myself, the Crypto Mewtwo. We also have Chase Coins and Super High here. We focus on creating opportunities for growth, networking, and education in the crypto industry. Super excited to have Sammy on, guys, from Redacted Cartel. Welcome to the show, Sammy.
Yeah, what up, guys? Nice to be here.
Yeah. Sammy, it's a little bit of a tradition here, but every new guest that we have on, we always like to ask them how they got into crypto. Super interested in your story, man.
Yeah, been in crypto for the past few years. I was at York U here in Toronto for econ. Yeah, like I guess like last year, and then yeah, I was like first year there. And they made this like really dope like blockchain development program, like a postgrad program, which actually taught you like Solidity and shit, and it was super dope. And usually you need an undergrad to get into a postgrad program, but this was when Ethereum was like worth nothing, and no one signed up for it, and I was able to get in with no credentials. So I just did that. So, I actually have like a postgrad in blockchain development. I don't have an undergrad though. And yeah, I guess like, from there, like I sort of met people that like helped design like that curriculum and stuff. Um, and, like started working with like a few different funds and like layer ones and more on like the analysis and research side of things. And then, I guess like being on the analysis and research side, you get like, especially for like DeFi and stuff like that, you get like super tapped in with what's going on. Met a lot of dope people, helped like, accelerate my process of like really what's going on in this space. And, like felt like I was in a position with my network and stuff to, um, like launch my own stuff. So here we are.
Yeah, that's super dope. That's crazy, man. You're probably one of like the first graduates ever to actually have something in crypto.
Yeah, well, I didn't graduate, like now that program has like a 5-year waiting list. Like, you need like a master's in like computer science and stuff to get in. And like I just got lucky, because like everyone thought ETH was dead and I was able to like slide in there and get like that degree and stuff. Maybe I'll go back and finish like my undergrad like later, but yeah, I mean like why do an undergrad when you can just do like a blockchain program?
If you have to wait 5 years, you're just not gonna make it. That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, dude, like that would have mean that like I'm only in my second year now. Like I would have been in my second year right now. So that would have been like, yeah, that would have been wouldn't have been able to do anything for a couple of years.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I think the only way maybe to do that is like go to college, but also like hustle on the side, kind of do both. But you probably don't even have time at this point to do both.
Yeah, crypto is like a 24/7 industry, right? Like we were just talking about this before we started. Like you don't have time to like study and stuff and do crypto. Maybe if you're like doing like drop shipping or something like, like flipping stuff on Amazon or whatever, you can do both. But I think in crypto, like it needs your full attention, it's really hard to do like a side hustle.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like every hour I'm logged offline, something's happening, and I'm missing something. It's pretty hard to keep up with everything going on in the space,
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah, I would also add, at this point in time, I feel like crypto is more about experience than education. So I feel like for the most part, in terms of the higher education part, it's really kind of irrelevant, and your experience is what really matters at this point in time within the industry.
Yeah, your DGen score speaks louder than your CV.
Let's go. No, 100%. I totally agree with that. Curious, like, what was the journey like to actually like founding or co-founding Redacted?
Yeah, it was a fun journey. Like I think I'm part of this like collective network called New Order. That's sort of like this like network of I guess like founders and resources that sort of help projects like help founders who don't necessarily have the resources like get to market and launch. It's like an incubator DAO, you know, like we're trying to launch like the YC of DeFi, where entry for like the resources or whatever is done through like launching a project through there. It launched like recently, but like I was one of like the first projects involved there, along with like Optify and H2O, which like are like new order things. But yeah, like like I met a lot of dope people through there. Sort of had this idea, like I said, like being like relatively like tapped in with what's going on with like Olympus. I was like a soft contributor there, and then like the Curve Wars, I think like are like a complex thing that I was like kind of like following from the beginning, so I kind of knew like what was going on. Um, and yeah, I guess like like from there, sort of met like the other co-founder. He's here, I see him, Canando, and we were just like jamming away at like the idea, at the concept, and then hit up Olympus, started like working on the idea with them, how we make sure that it's like a win-win for everyone. Because I felt like when we were sort of launching, there was like a lot of projects coming out that were like, like we're gonna be like the reserve currency of like Solana or some nonsense. And not to like throw shade at that project, but like just as an example. And like we wanted to like leverage the Olympus mechanics for like our own vision and purpose, but we didn't want it to be like competing with Olympus, right? So we sort of were like working with them on the idea, took it to governance, get past it like flying colors, and like that's kind of like how it came to life.
Yeah. I'm sure we have like a ton of people, Sammy, that don't even know like what the curve words are. Could you kind of touch on that for the audience?
What are the curve wars? Yeah, I guess like the okay, yeah, let's talk about it. So, um, I guess you have like dexes like um Sushi Swap and Uniswap and like other sort of dexes, right? And then people sort of look at Curve and they don't really understand like the purpose of it, because originally it was just like swapping stable coins for other stable coins. If you are like a pegged coin and you're a stable coin, the number one thing that matters for you, like most projects, but especially for stable coins, is like liquidity, right? You can only get so far with like protocol emissions, sort of like people farming like your own token or whatever. And Curve sort of has this like unique um, model where you can, if people have like conviction in the protocol and they want to, and they're like major liquidity providers, in this case, like a stable coin or something, what you might do is like, launch like your LP there, accumulate a bunch of CRV and lock it up, right? And then with locked CRV, like, I guess like with other locked governance tokens, you can vote on like governance proposals and stuff like that. Like I'm sure you're all aware of that. But Curve has this like notion of the gauge, right? And what the gauge is basically um, like this module where people can who have locked up CRV can decide where the emissions of CRV for that sort of period go to, right? So if I'm a stablecoin, Fei, for example, I want Fei to be liquid for obvious reasons, right? It is in my best interest to either lock up CRV or convince people who have locked up CRV to vote for my pool, so that like the Fei pool on Curve is getting a lot of liquidity, right? It's getting a lot of it's getting a lot of Curve rewards, and um, that would mean that more people are like buying Fei and like locking it up there, right? It's not just Fei; it's like every stable coin, and now it like goes beyond just stable coins. It's like volatile tokens as well. Um, that's how it works on like the Curve side. I'm happy to like dive more into it, but yeah, I mean the notion of the Curve wars is basically protocols fighting over where emissions of like CRV and like CVX go.
Yeah. No, that was a great description. Thanks for that, Sammy. And maybe now's a good point to touch on like how does Redacted like fit into that mix and within the Curve War.
Yeah, so Redacted has so it's a very profitable industry, right? Like it's a very profitable vertical of DeFi. I think Degen Spartan sort of said it best, like there's um when war is about like, don't pick a side. Um, like, there's just profit to be made in war, like profit off of it, don't pick a side. And I think like right now, like everyone, I think like everyone was approaching the curve wars like sort of like within their own self-interests, right? So like sort of like, emitting rewards and just like profiting off of it and stuff like that. Or like, like seeing the benefits of that. And then like, like these people are putting up like lump sums of money. And we sort of stepped in and said, like, you know what, like we don't have any self-interest to satisfy. We don't have a stable coin. We're just here to like extract value out of it. And now like you're starting to see multiple protocols sort of go the same route of like sort of locking up tokens and trying to get other protocols to like, influence the protocol's emissions and stuff like that, which we are in a good position to sort of like accumulate the governance token, lock it up, and just like sort of receive those rewards and funnel in the revenue from that sort of niche sector of DeFi, right? Um, so I guess like the way we're playing the curve wars is instead of like fighting with people to sort of like decide where the liquidity of curve goes, but people are basically like paying us to like vote for them. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a super unique case, and you guys are really like one of the pioneers now within the curve wars and kind of building out the space.
I wouldn't say
Uh,
that, man. Like this has been around for like a long time. I think like it went quiet for a bit because like Convex kind of came in and won. Um, but like since this was like a big reason that like Urine is what it is. It wasn't just Urine and Convex. Like there was other players that play Stake DAO and stuff like that. Like this has been around for like months. I guess like in DeFi it feels like years, but it's been around for a while now, and like I think we're one of like the latest players to like get into it rather than be like one of the pioneers. So shout out those guys.
yeah. Why do you think your project is getting so much attention right now? Then.
Um, I think like multiple different reasons, right? I think like one, um, there's a lack of like fundamentals, I think, in the space. Like people think like very short term and they're not necessarily thinking about how to accrue revenue. Just from like the efforts we take in the curve wars, we're annualizing between 30 to $40 million in revenue a year, which is like really good for a startup when you think of it in terms like that. Um, so, like obviously we have some roadblocks ahead of us, like sort of working down emissions and making sure that like, the protocol is generating more revenue for people and like the token is accruing more value in like very unique ways, rather than just, like making a shitty yield farm, right? I think like no one really wants that. And give me a sec. Um, yeah, like I was saying, and then like like I think there's also this thing of like curve wars are kind of like a whale game. This is like something that came up like yesterday in the Discord, which I thought was like really dope. Like the curve wars are like really like a whale game, right? And Butterfly is kind of like this proxy token that acts as like a tokenized whale. Like some of the things we're doing now is like participating in like seed rounds and getting early allocations to projects, which like like people sort of just like don't have access to, right? And all this sort of value goes back to like the token holders through like this Olympus model, right? Um, increasing the backing per token and whatnot. And we're sort of working on like other stuff as well that we're putting out. I'm sure we'll dive into it later. That like just like keep on sort of like developing like the different streams of revenue that are like coming into the token. And I think like once the protocol reaches a stage where we have some sense of stability, both in terms of like the treasury as well as like the growth, I think like the long term plan is to like pass these revenues back on to like lockers of Butterfly, right? So there's like a really big focus on like the true fundamentals here, like how we are generating revenue without necessarily like putting out like a ton of emissions. And I think like with the position that we have in like some of these like extremely high revenue generating assets, we're sort of in this bootstrapping phase right now. We're in a good position to just like generate like a ton of revenue without having to ever do anything really, which I think is like really good for DeFi. And yeah.
Hey, Sammy, So we have a lot of listeners at varying level of kind of like insights into DeFi, and you touched on one point about the Olympus model. Could you kind of like go through at a high level what the Olympus bonding system looks like for Redacted, and then could you also kind of touch on what your guys' partnership of being a sub-DAO looks like within the larger DAO of Olympus?
I guess so. It works the exact same as Olympus right now. So maybe like I'll just say what it looks like what bonding is.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Um, okay, so DeFi, a couple. Honestly, Olympus hasn't been around that long. I think yeah, DeFi like, in the early days, there was like people the way that you would bootstrap liquidity for your token was yield farming, right? Like I think people still do it to this day, like give us like put your liquidity here and we will like emit like tokens basically as a reward, right? And then Olympus sort of looked at it from a different way, that a more sustainable method of like growing your protocol beyond the staking side of things, is to like own that liquidity, right? So what they would do is essentially say like, instead of like put your tokens here for like a year and you're earning like 1,000% APY. Essentially what you'd be doing is like, they would be minting new Ohm tokens, and like we'll get into like the rebases and stuff, but saying like, create this liquidity pool position and we'll just buy it off of you, right? So someone else would like sort of create this like liquidity pool position of Ohm and DAI, and instead of like you yield farming it and finding returns from it, we will give you Ohm at a discount for just like trading it in. So you get the benefit and you get the upside upfront and immediately, right? Um, that's like a really quick explanation of it. So it's sort of like this transition from like renting your liquidity to owning it. And I think like it quickly proved to be like a black hole for liquidity, like Olympus's treasury is like 800, or I think like with the downturn, like whatever, like 600 to $800 million, right? Um, and they just own all this liquidity. And it's like, like a lot of protocols now are like, they're kind of screwed, right? Because like the rewards just like every single time there's like, every single day there's like a new yield farm and people just like rotate out. But Olympus is able to keep like really deep liquidity positions, that help accelerate their narrative of being this like reserve currency, right? So having like really deep liquidity across DeFi, and having Ohm sort of represent like a stable backing of like stable coins and stuff. They don't just like sell the Ohm at a discount for liquidity pools. It's also like stable coins and stuff. Um, I think like for redacted, like people like often like fight over like I guess like some of these other influential governance tokens like the same way. Like they sort of say like deposit your tokens here, whatever, and like we give you like a wrapper or something, and like you can just farm it, right? I think with us like the difference is like, like sort of like users are like bonding their assets and we're giving them back Butterfly in return. And then what we're trying to make with Butterfly is sort of like owning all these like influential governance tokens that can never leave again, right? So I think like, in the short term, whatever happens with the market, like, like we're still like I think like right now we're, depending on if you count like Moki or not, we're like top three holders of like top three holders of CVX as a DAO, right? Which is like pretty impressive, but that's always ours, like that's never going anywhere. Um, which like I'm super like proud of, and I think it's like a really good like foundation for us to like keep growing. So I think like that answers the question of like how Olympus operates in like a really simple sense. Obviously, there's like rebases and stuff that get introduced so that there's no dilution for people that are already in the protocol. And then like, that crazy APY is not really a crazy APY. It's more just like to account for the dilution that is happening from the bonding volume. Um, and then the second part of your question was like being a sub-DAO, right? Um, yeah, like I said, like, like we obviously saw the use case for like leveraging this mechanic. But like, in technical terms, like there's no point like beating around the bush. Like it is just an ohm fork, right now at least, right? Which have been like previously like very malicious to Olympus, and really like hurt their growth, right? Um, More than hurt their growth, like it proved one thing, that like Olympus was not able to like scale out as quickly as they wanted to. I think they did a really good job of capturing stable coins on Ethereum, but then you quickly saw clones of the protocol popping up on multiple different chains and serving multiple different purposes because Olympus wasn't able to scale and capture as much of the market as it wanted to. Obviously, like, the whole team is like a bunch of homies. Like, we would never do anything like that. Like, we want to help see like Olympus win too, right? I think when you think about the notion of like a reserve bank, right, in this sort of case, there's different branches, right, that focus on different subsets of the market. I think Redacted is sort of like the subset of Olympus that lives under them, sort of part of the family that has a specific vision and focus on like accumulating influential governance tokens, right? Not stable coins, right? And obviously like Olympus has like a big chunk of our supply and stuff like that. And it doesn't stop there, right? Like I think there's potential for, different branches of Olympus that focus on different things like multi-chain assets, NFTs or metaverse crap, whatever. Um, like it doesn't really end there, right? So I think the relationship from like a numbers perspective is like sort of like, we share like a bit of the revenue with them. They have like a majority of supply of like these like P tokens, which are like the pre-launch tokens or whatever. Uh and we're sort of just like partners with them, right? Like we have like our own focus and vision. We're sort of like obviously doing our own thing, but we are, actively working with Olympus to make sure that they're capturing like this part of the market without like having to stretch themselves too thin and like dilute their vision, right?
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for that really thorough breakdown. I'm actually curious, just like from a philosophical standpoint, because one, it's really crazy to say. I don't even think Olympus is even a year old. We talk about how fast this industry moves, and we've seen Olympus, like you touched on. We have kind of seen forks, and some were not as kind of collaborative as others have been. But I'm curious. And of course, we just seen, I think, like a lot of just own forks on other L1s, varying L1s that were really just kind of money grabs, and haven't really executed on their visions. But I'm curious, like just from a philosophical standpoint, how do you kind of see that change of the protocol owning its liquidity? Like, how do you see that evolving over time as DAOs themselves begin to mature, like in this industry?
I guess like what is like the next evolution or
Yeah, I guess that, or if you just kind of like thought about potential use cases or DAOs that just haven't even been dreamt up yet or haven't launched yet,
yeah,
that there's like areas of opportunity.
Yeah, I'm super interested this year on I think like creating more protocol facing uh projects, I guess you could say. I think like majority of stuff in DeFi that has come out like since its inception has been um retail facing, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Like obviously that's what made DeFi what it is. But now as you start to see protocols have like these insane amounts of like these insane treasuries, like Redacted's like a month old that has like $80 million or something, right? These protocols sort of hold like huge positions in different projects, and there's like a huge like market opportunity. I was just talking with like the debt DAO guys. I think this is like a prime example. I think like what we have to do as an industry to grow now is make projects that maybe are not like so focused on like community and retail and stuff like that, but really making sure that like other DAOs can like interact with each other and extract value from each other through like sort of like these like private DAO markets, right? These private label markets, like under collateralized lending, and I guess like token swap infrastructure, DAO to DAO collaborations, all that sort of stuff, right? So I think like one of the cool things that you're starting to see with like this notion of like protocol controlled value and protocol owned liquidity, like obviously everyone's sort of like tackling it from their own sort of way. Like some people do like the bonding mechanism, some people put a bigger focus on like revenue that goes to the DAO. But I think like the next evolution of that is not like necessarily like an evolvement from like yield farming, but it's more like creating protocols at like a different layer of like the supply chain. We're doing that, like we're doing that right now with one of the projects we have called like Hidden Hand, which is like a general purpose like bribe marketplace where basically like other DAOs who want to see like their project succeed on like another DAO are basically like bribing token holders to like vote for them, um, vote for their protocol to help like direct liquidity towards them and stuff like that, right? And then I just mentioned like that DAO. I'm gonna like shill them for a bit. It's like under collateralized lending for DAOs where they basically basically it's like a peer-to-peer loan between like one DAO and another. And yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to tackle it. When you think about like what you can do with like these trusted but at the same time like trustless parties in DeFi, like there's a whole bunch of like revenue and value to be extracted from the space.
Yeah, I'm actually curious, and kind of like shifting it back to Redacted specifically, voting efficiency as a service. What exactly is this?
I'm not
I feel
sure
like
where that term came from. Like the VEAAS is like vote escrow as a service. So
Yeah.
like I think like everyone just thought it meant like voting efficiency as a service. Like yeah. Anyways, continue. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Well, so I think actually this is in your guys' documents on your website. So maybe that's where people are getting it. But it fits, right? Like you have the VE, like it's just always been there, so it just kind of works out. But yeah, so one, just kind of what is this, and what are the larger ecosystem ramifications of having this kind of service at scale?
Yeah. There's so I guess like one of the things that we're like building on and working out now is like how to make the governance of the token sitting in the treasury like as efficient as possible. Obviously, right now we're trading above like the while like risk-free value is like a flawed metric, we are like trading above like the backing in the treasury, right? Sort of because like this premium attached to the protocol where people are thinking about like the revenue numbers that I said we're generating, right? Typical like it's like a stock, whatever, right? Um, so what ends up happening is that like if you're a protocol that's looking to use CVX to like vote for your token or whatever and make it like more liquid, it's obviously like more capital efficient for you to acquire vanilla CVX and lock it and vote. Um, so right now we sort of don't have this voting efficiency, but we're making it like a switch, or I guess you could say like a transition, to a place where actually like using Butterfly is a much more like efficient way of acquiring CVX votes. The goal is to have 3 CVX votes for the price of 1. Using this like novel mechanic we're sort of working on, which is like governance locked Butterfly, GL Butterfly, and RL Butterfly, like revenue locked. So basically what it is, like I was just explaining, like the vote escrow model with Curve, where people lock up their Curve and then they get revenue and then they get like all this sort of stuff. So what we're launching is like 2 new like vote escrow products. One is more business facing, which is the governance locked Butterfly, where people can lock up their Butterfly for meta governance rights of like the CVX and CRV that we have sitting in our treasury. And then the revenue locked Butterfly is obviously like a more retail, familiar experience for people, where basically people are locking up their Butterfly to get like protocol fees and revenue, as well as like bribe rewards and all that sort of stuff, right? What ends up happening with this is that X amount of supply is locked up in revenue locked Butterfly, which is generating all the fees and stuff like that. And then X amount of supply is locked up in governance locked Butterfly. So what ends up happening is like if 80% of supply is like locked up, generating fees and all this sort of stuff, they are submitting or they are like sacrificing their governance rights of the treasury assets, which makes it an extremely lucrative opportunity for a DAO to come in and acquire Butterfly and lock it and access all the governance rights over the treasury, because everyone is so focused on the revenue locked Butterfly. So you create this like really cool balance, which will be enforced by the market, where basically some people are locked up in one vault, some people are locked up in another vault, and the GL Butterfly lockers that are sacrificing their protocol revenue is sent as a boost to the RL Butterfly lockers, and then vice versa, right? So the RL Butterfly lockers that are sacrificing their meta governance rights are sent to the GL Butterfly lockers. So essentially, what like it goes back to like your question of like VEAAS, trying to make the Butterfly token like as efficient as possible and make as many like opportunities for people and source like buying pressure from like I guess like 2 different sides, right? Like one side being like other DAOs and then one side being like retail, right? Yeah, does that answer your question, or like not really?
Yeah, no, it does, and it kind of like as you're going through the various different types of tokens, like I think you said G, Butterfly, and I think you guys have X Butterfly, P Butterfly. Once again, just kind of at a high level, like when we move to mass adoption, what is the solution here? Like, how are we going to kind of make this a little bit more?
There is no mass adoption. Like one of my big theses in like getting into this industry was crypto anarchism, which is a thesis that has been left in the ditch as we've sort of like been building DeFi. Like everyone's trying to make like institutional facing crap, and like like this is like DeFi for your mom and stuff like that, right? Like I don't think anyone is really building this stuff out. Like no one, like we're not going to win. Like clearly like the regulators are against us. Like there's a lot of people against us. What's going to happen is, like, to me at least, like what I'm trying to build is like kids nowadays are going to have Ethereum wallets, they're going to have MetaMask wallets before they'll have bank accounts, um, and what I'm trying to build is like a second layer of finance. Well, I'm not building DeFi, I'm not building the whole industry, but the way I view it at least is that we're building an alternative, right? We're not building a solution to the current problems that we face in TradFi, right? I don't know if that's like an unpopular opinion. I think everyone sort of wants it to like replace the US dollar and all this sort of stuff, but I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I think like the way we win as an industry is if we provide an alternative, not a solution. So, it's totally cool to build really complex financial instruments, because in the end of the day, like I'm not trying to make Butterfly be like the new US dollar, right? Um, I want it to be its own thing, and an alternative to finance, not a replacement of it.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting take. It's a very complex world, and so and it's a very complex navigating. So I'm just trying to think of what that adoption looks like for the people that do want to kind of take that less like traveled path, if you will. Yeah, that's a really interesting take.
And kind of referencing that, how you said it's not DeFi for your mom, right? So I actually gave my mom and dad a little MetaMask 101 and showed them Uniswap and all the other stuff. But they probably don't know, that there's whales, right? And I had seen that there was a pretty big whale in Butterfly, and I was just curious if Redacted has any OTC plans for any of these whales to exit safely and not just totally wreck everybody else.
Yeah. I think like like there's like every protocol sort of faces this issue. It's not just us. Like I think like some of the bigger participants in our protocol have like like they just voice their position. Like whatever, they're cool guys. But yeah, I mean like yeah, it's all set up there. Like we obviously like you consider like the thin liquidity of the protocol, and obviously there's people on the buying side that can't get in because of slippage issues. So there's like, as we sort of build out liquidity, there's like solutions there. Actually, like one cool solution is like we're working with Membrane, which is like this new like project being built on top of like Tokamak. I don't think it has anything to do with Tokamak, but it's sort of like this like new interface for people to like coordinate OTC sales of tokens and stuff like that. So I mean, we're using that.
Yeah, perfect. And then my next question I had for you was the 4-phase rollout. So right now we're in Operation Swallowtail, and I was just wondering if you can go over what Operation Swallowtail is, and then just kind of go over the next phases as well. It's without spilling too much that you can't, of course.
No, I mean it's all public. Like the thing is like I think like the one thing we probably should have done in hindsight was like I guess like take into account like I guess like how fast this industry moves, and like I'm not like I want the protocol to be like agile and adapt like as the industry evolves, right? Like obviously like like the exponential rate of innovation that happens like in this funny world of finance that we live in, you either adapt or you die, right? So things have changed definitely. Like I think like since like the launch, or since we made those plans like a few months ago, which is totally cool. But yeah, like so basically the plan was like do this treasury bootstrapping event where people can sort of get Butterfly by like bonding their assets to the treasury, which was like a successful sale. I think we raised at current valuations like $50 million or something. And then Swallowtail is what we're in right now. So sort of like, sort of using the Olympus mechanics to like bootstrap the treasury even further, expand the ecosystem out into like some different tokens that we see like potential upside in from a revenue generation perspective, like Toke, DPX, FXS, which is going like really smoothly right now. And then like the next plan was to sort of like the next one, I think, Red Admiral, or sorry, Holly Blue. These are like really crap names when I like think about it, but these are like names of butterflies. Yeah. So Holly Blue is like the next phase where we were transitioning to like on-chain governance, and I'm gonna do some new stuff. But I think like since we've launched and built out like a really dope team of like core contributors to the project, we found like probably the next best transition is like putting like a really big focus on like sustainability and passing value accrual back to like the token lockers and stuff like that. So I would say like Holly Blue is like sort of this like evolving expansion of the protocol. And like since then like we acquired Vodamac, and we've done like a few different acquisitions and seed rounds that have sort of like helped build and expand the thesis of the protocol. I think like one thing that's happened is like since launch is like instead of like honing in on like one or two ecosystems that we have like high conviction in, sort of work on this like notion of like the fat protocol thesis, and like like build out the protocols like suite of products and revenue streams through different sources rather than be too dependent on like a few different things.
Jace, did you want to swap to your question? And thank you, Sammy, for that in-depth.
Yeah, I just kind of like on the topic of like the future and what the future looks like. I'm just curious. I mean, I'd really kind of touched on this early in the episode about cross-chain and going across different ecosystems. I'm curious, is Redacted planning to expand to any other ecosystems? Like I see Avalanche is kind of like one of the premier EVM options that users are kind of bridging to play around in right now.
Yeah. I think like obviously like we probably, I mean obviously we'll do it. I think everyone in the DAO wants it. One of the roadblocks that currently face like a protocol like ours is making rebase tokens multi-chain, right? So having like a token like live on multiple chains, like all executing rebases on them. There's just limitations in terms of like cross-chain messaging, which limit us in that sense. Obviously, Ohm did this with Geom, but it ended up like kind of like hurting the protocol because people were trading a pegged asset, and then there was no buying pressure for Ohm, which like kind of caused like some liquidations or whatever. So we're trying to think of it strategically. What's the best way to expand the protocol out to like multiple chains? I think right now the plan is to like get the bribe market infrastructure on multiple chains so that we can at least start capturing value on those networks. But I think for now, like as long as we are like a rebase token, which is like, not long, we probably the best move strategically would stick to like living on mainnet.
Jason, answer. You're good on your question.
Yeah. No, thanks for diving into that, Sammy.
Sammy, I'm like super curious, man. Like throughout like this entire journey, like what's kind of the biggest lesson or takeaway you've learned so far?
Like in crypto in general, or like launching this project?
Launching this project.
Keep ideas close to your chest. There's a lot of bullshit in this space, man. Like there's like a lot of people like looking to like leech ideas and like sort of steal them and stuff. Like like it's a really hard like line to walk as like a builder trying to find like people that are like trying to launch like cool stuff versus like the people who are looking to like make a lot of money or like make a quick flip, I guess. Um, so like, trying to filter out that stuff was like the biggest learning lesson I had with through all of this. I think we did a good job. I think we did a good job.
You have any tips? Because I feel like everyone probably in the audience, I know I have been like burned on projects that we thought were great. But then, like you learn more about the founders, right? Or it just comes out of nowhere and they dump on you.
What can you look for in a founder, I guess? Like
Yeah.
in a project? I think like one thing we did when we were like looking at like the ecosystems we wanted to expand to, because it goes beyond just like bonding the token. Like, we do things like build dApps on top of them, like make strategic acquisitions and investments in like their ecosystems and stuff like that. I think like one of the things we do as like a due diligence process, I guess, like as a DAO, and I guess like, from the people that are having the BD conversations and stuff is like, I mean, like to us, it's like, I guess like now kind of obvious. Like, I really not don't like people who put like a lot of focus on like these things like buybacks and have like really short term thinking. Like the yeah, like buybacks like infuriate me to be honest. Because like people are just thinking like so short term. Like we're building in like one of the most um like innovative and experimental like industries in the world, and people are just thinking about what the token does in the quarter. um so I often like look for like the communities that are thinking like a bit ahead. uh that's not like, I mean, I'm not talking about like what coins I buy like personally and stuff. I guess like this is more like in Redacted's landscape, because this is like, for Redacted, like we don't sell the stuff that comes into our treasury, so we're not trying to accumulate garbage that's around for like a year or something, right? The goal is obviously to make this like an immutable product that like lives forever on Ethereum. So we want to make sure that like whatever we're like strategically acquiring is like people that have like a similar mindset of like, they want to make this like an immutable product one day, and like, they're not so worried about like what the token does in like a month.
Yeah. I think it's super important for everyone to have like a long term vision. I think the space moves so quickly, and people are just worried about the short term price action of coins when they're not actually looking at the long term utility or value that these projects are going to bring over the next 2, 3, 5 years to the whole crypto ecosystem, which is super important.
Sammy, for anyone that maybe wants to help contribute in the vision and mission that you guys are kind of striving towards, are you guys looking to hire new talent? Is it just kind of open in that DAO structure? Like, what does that look like for anyone that may be tuning in? This sounds really interesting, and they want to kind of contribute in some sort of way.
Yeah. We don't do like hires per se. I guess like, yeah, I guess like there's okay, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways, right? I mean, the best way obviously is to like join the Discord, all that sort of stuff. Um, if you check out our D work, which is like this really cool project that we've been working with that I met out in Lisbon, they have like basically like Notion but on chain, which is like really dope. So we have like a whole Notion board set up with bounties that you can claim in real time on chain, completely done anonymously, linked to your Ethereum address. We're one of the first users of it. We're really excited about it. So there's a ton of bounties there if you're looking for something to like quickly get involved with or just help out with one or two things. If you're looking to get more involved on the full-time contributor, like like a core contributor to the project, basically we have these calls we call Metamorphosis every Friday, where basically like contributors can like join in, our marketing kings sort of give you the rundown of like the way the protocol works, the way we make decisions, all that sort of stuff. And then we have like these mini committee votes, like sort of bringing on core contributors and pay you handsomely per se. So there's a bunch of different ways for people to get involved, whether it's like a core contributor to the project or if it's just something that they want to be like doing bounties and stuff with.
Very, very based. Sammy, near the end of these episodes, we normally like to bring on audience members or allow that opportunity. Are you down to allow audience members to come on and maybe ask a question or two?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if anyone in the audience wants to come on, just smash that request button and we'll let you guys on one at a time. For sure. I know Viva. I see Viva's been requesting for some time. I don't know if she's just like stuck in that request. So Viva, if you want to come up, just maybe do like the 100 emoji, and I'll let you on.
Also, Sammy, while we're waiting for somebody to come up, are you going to eat Denver?
No. No, I'm not.
I'd ask.
No. I'm gonna be at the Avex Barca thing though.
Yeah, I want to go to that, but it might be a little too expensive.
Yeah, I heard everyone's going to eat Denver though, so maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah, you should come through, bro. We'll all be there.
The Redacted team's gonna be out there. There's gonna be a lot of people from Redacted out there.
Oh snap! Yeah, maybe we'll try and link up for sure. Are they? You guys have like a Telegram?
We don't have a Telegram. I mean, we're gonna throw like a party or whatever with the guys from probably Tokamak. So like we'll like that'll be public and stuff.
No,
Sure. What's going on, Viva? Welcome to the stage.
Hey, thank you guys. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to ask a question, maybe make a couple of observations. So appreciate it. Sammy, I'm an investor, or I have Redacted, and I'm a longtime OMI, and also invested in Tok and Tokamak and in Frax ecosystem. So kind of believe in all the narratives that you guys have promoted and believe in. So very excited about everything that you guys are doing. I just wanted to make a quick observation, maybe ask a question on top of it. Um, you've you you know I think the key problem that Ohm solves, just as an observation, is of course everybody knows is protocol controlled value or protocol controlled liquidity, whatever you want to call it. And it really came out of Ampleforth and Faye, actually, who first were experimenting with these things. And then Zeus combined the two ideas into one really nifty idea. Uh, and it also harkens back to something older, which was Chris Bernitzky's idea of velocity sink, if some of you may remember when he proposed that in 2018, or I think it was in 2017 when he proposed that in one of his essays, where he kind of elaborated on the problem that tokens will face, which is high velocity resulting into lower value, and why you need some kind of a velocity sink. And when I think of Redacted, and the reason why I loved when you came up with the idea of Redacted and it was being discussed in the discords in Ohm, was that it was going to provide as a sub-DAO a velocity sync mechanism for the entire DeFi ecosystem, right? Slowly and steadily, it'll hopefully expand to even things like Aave or what we consider to be DeFi 1.0 now. And it'll hopefully expand to those kind of protocols also. And it'll act as a DeFi, as a sort of a sync, not just as a voting service, but as a sync, and also as a mechanism to solve that problem that was originally actually anticipated by Chris Bernitzky. Uh, Having said that, I think you asked an amazing question earlier. I think was it Chase or somebody asked earlier the question of what are the next set of problems, and Sammy, you said it is DAO to DAO. It's basically B2B becomes DAO to DAO, and how we solve that interaction problem and how we improve liquidity efficiency. But I think we've talked a lot about liquidity efficiency, and and maybe last 2 years of DeFi is all about iterating on the question of liquidity efficiency. What are the other things that really excite you that are not even so much on the horizon, uh, or not, we are not even thinking about it? One problem that I see is reflexivity. DeFi ecosystem is completely reflexive without any real world use right now, and Maker is of course making some of the first attempts in this area. uh, I don't know what other problems are really bugging you right now that are outside of these domains.
Unironically, like as decentralized and reflexive we are as a DAO, like the number one issue or the number one thing I'm most excited for is like immutability, um, which is like I don't think in anyone's roadmap really, right? I'd look like to me like a super big inspiration is like liquidity, You know, like Liquidity is just a bunch of chads. Like they basically put out like a super dope stable coin that works. Um, and they said like, you know, we don't need like exit liquidity tokens and we don't need like governance and stuff. The protocol works, it does its job. Like, you know, like let's just make it like Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin in a weird way is kind of a DAO. But you know, like let's just like put it out there and this is it. This is like what it is. It lives there forever. You never sort of have to worry about like evolving to like different regulations. Like no one's going to be able to like keep you in a box. No one's going to come to your DAO with like really stupid suggestions that like people like looking for like the number go up like come in and like basically like ruin the growth and prosperity of your project, right? um I think like every DeFi project like end of the roadmap, you know, like people always have like a 2022 roadmap. Like I mean we did this too, so I'm not like I don't know why I'm saying this, but like you know they have like the 2022 roadmap and 2023 like revamped roadmap, like all this sort of stuff. Like I think like it like protocols should like start coming out with a path to like immutability, right? Because that's like the purest form of like decentralization is like when your protocol can actually like live by itself without anyone overseeing it, whether that is like a core team or like a community of people, right? So I think like that's what I'm most excited for, like far on the horizon, whenever we get there as an industry.
So governance minimization, similar to what Rye proposes, right?
Yeah, right. That those guys are a bunch of chats too. Rye and Liquidity, those are like my two like biggest inspirations in DeFi.
That's great. That's great.
Thanks for coming on, Viva. Very based. Love it. Appreciate it.
That was a based question.
Yeah. That's why I like the audience questions, man, because people are thinking differently than I am, and Chase and Super, and it mixes it up. So I love it. We'll give it a few more seconds here, guys. If you guys, anyone else wants to come on, just hit that request button. We're all a friendly group. But while we're waiting, Sammy, just really appreciate you, man, taking the time out to come speak with us tonight, man. It's been awesome to just learn about Redacted and hear your perspective on just like the whole crypto ecosystem and the curve wars. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
+1 to that.
Man. Been a good chat. Talked about a lot of cool things.
Anything you can leak, Sammy? From
Like
all
the
the
marketing,
other...
actually, like our marketing core contributors got like really pissed at me because we had like this like all these things that we wanted to like make like huge campaigns about and like you know go shill it and stuff on Twitter, and then I just like we had it in like a slide deck and then I kind of like just posted it. So like I think like everything we have for the year is just like on.
Oh,
like,
even I was mad at you when I saw your slide deck. I can tell you that because I was like, there's so many great ideas. Why are you putting this right now? Because you're not going to be able to code this for the next 6 months.
Because we need like no. Actually, like you'd be surprised. Like a lot of that stuff is like already in audit.
Oh, awesome.
You'd be surprised. Like there's still actually like other cool stuff. Like you know, one of the reasons I did that is because I just wanted to like plant a seed for people that like I think like still view us as like an ohm fork, right? I wanted to like plant a seed and like show people like a bit like how we're like thinking about like the future of the protocol, like looking towards like sustainability and stuff like that. And in hindsight, like it was a really good decision because we were able to attract like a lot of gigabrains and people with like other really good ideas that like helped evolve those ideas even further. So in hindsight, I'm happy I did it.
Very based. I don't think we have any more questions from the audience, Sammy. So we'll let you go. We do record these. Are you cool if we post this up on our YouTube and on our podcast channels?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's go.
Sweet.
All right, everyone. Stay based. Thank you so much again, Sammy. And have a good night, everyone, or a good day, wherever you're at.
Stay based.
Thanks, Sammy.
Peace out, guys.
Peace.
Based space.